won. And I gotta be honest, this segment that we're about to do, it's one I've been looking forward to all show. As we said in the intro, Serena Williams officially retires after she lost in the third round of the U.S. Open. But just how awesome it was to see one last run from her. She wins in the first round. She beats the number 2 seed in the second round. And for a little bit, you have some fun conversations about, is she going to win her last U.S. Open? It doesn't happen, but she officially retires. 23 Grand Slam titles, most in the Open era, second most all time. You said it's one of the greatest ever.
Yeah. She absolutely was like an icon for not only tennis, but I think just in general sports. Like, she has been so resilient, and watching her and her sister dominate the tennis world has been phenomenal. And I think that was only emphasized in that match yesterday night on like her third round match. It was really hard to watch, I think, towards the end, just in terms of like, she wins the second set, she forces the third set, and you just see her kind of crumble at that point. She goes down 1-5, and she's trying her hardest to dig it out and keep the game, and it goes over 3 hours, and she just can't do it. She can't find it in the zone, and it's falters, and it's one of the most heartbreaking things where you hate to be the person almost to eliminate her, because you're like, so many of these tennis people that she's played against are huge fans of her. And she gives her speech, she thanks Venus especially. And it was just honestly such a sad moment. And you see all of the tweets that rolled in from so many celebrities, like Tiger Woods tweeted about her. And you just see like all the gratitude and the recognition. It's really sad to see. And I hope this isn't like the last time we see of her. Maybe she'll come back commentating or something in tennis, or, do a couple interviews. But she's done now officially with playing. It's really sad kind of to see this happen.
I think it's kind of the end of an era for tennis. Serena and Venus, one of the best things about them to me is how they open the gates for so many black athletes, so many female athletes, so many black female athletes. Now some of the biggest names in tennis are women of color, Naomi Osaka, Coco Gauff. So before Serena and Venus, there wasn't much representation in tennis, and both of them they really got that representation. And now, like I said, some of the biggest names in tennis are women of color, which is awesome.
And you look at almost in the same boat, probably in the same boat as Tiger Woods, and someone that came into a sport that was mostly white dominated and just opened it up to an entirely new audience. And the fact that they both did it at such a young age, they both came in at such a young age, and were so good, so young. I mean, we were talking off air. She won her first U.S. Open 1999. We weren't born yet.
That's crazy.
And then she won her last one in 2017. So that's an 18-year run of dominance that it's really hard to parallel.
And that's the one she won pregnant, right? Like,
yes.
Which is another huge thing. Like,
that's it. There's so much that she's done that you could just. It's so true.
I think one of the biggest things is how she came back after having, she took that long break to raise her daughter, have her daughter, and came back and was just not as dominant as she was before she had her daughter, but I think that's very, very impressive to see, and just a testament to her athleticism.
And her daughter was so adorable. Like, with she had the beads that her mom used to wear and everything like that, and I thought that was so sweet. And I think one of the other bittersweet things is watching her and Venus get to play doubles together for the last time. I think that watching something like that was quite incredible, and it's something I'm never going to see again. But what's crazy about that match that I found out is the pair that they played against was a 37 and a 17-year-old who never played together before. That's a little embarrassing, but what it serves is it's just crazy to think what they were doing in the Open besides that, where Williams was serving 119 miles per hour on some serves. That's ridiculous to me to see someone do that at after giving birth, and just after her hiatus and after everything. I didn't expect her to come in and really win this Open, I don't think, but I expected to put up for her to put up a great show, and I think she did that. I think she proved exactly what she needed to prove. I think beating the number 2 seed was huge. I think that was kind of the crowning moment of this Open, and I think that's something I'm never going to forget. And I think getting to see then girls like Coco Gauff also playing in the same tournament, seeing that happen right in front of her eyes, her idol retiring right in front of her, crazy. And I think that's just something that's going to stick with a lot of people for like the rest of their lives.
I'm big. I love that she beat the number 2 seed because it was going to be an awesome moment no matter what. Even if she lost in the first round, it's the end of a magnificent career. But she wins in the first round, but then she knocks off the number 2 seed, and it's like, she can still do it. Like, even right now, she can still go out there and beat some of the best of the best. I think that was really cool. She didn't need to win this U.S. Open to cement her legacy or anything. It's already cemented. She's one of the greatest athletes ever.
Yeah.
But that final knocking off that 2 seed, it's kind of like that cherry on top, that final.
That's all she needed. And like, we want to talk, like, also the betting action, like, with the U.S. Open was crazy because, like we said, like, we didn't expect to, like, really see her win this. So I wouldn't have been anybody that, like, I didn't know anybody that bet on it. But, like, she didn't get, like, any, like, bets at all, which was crazy. And then finally, like, once she won that second, again, the number 2 seed, it inflated so heavily where they were just like, no, she's winning it all now. She's going to do it. She's going to do it.
I think it just shows how resilient she is. And, you know, even though she didn't win the Open as a whole, she did get that moment where she beat the number 2 seed. And I think it's good that she did get past the first round. I think it would have been maybe a little bit disappointing to only see her play one time, but it made it even more bittersweet to see her kind of succeed in that fashion. And I think it's almost necessary for the plot of the story.
It's sports, sometimes they have that storybook feel to them where it's right there, and sometimes the script aligns just perfectly. And I think this was one of those scenarios. I think the perfect script would have been her winning the U.S. Open, but it's really not a bad script that you get to see her win a couple of games, and there's a little bit of a stretch where the entire world is talking about, hey, can Serena Williams win another U.S. Open? That's kind of cool that in her final Open that was a legitimate conversation that people were having.
Yeah. And I think what was so crazy, because I remember watching it last night, like I was sitting on the couch watching her match, over 3 hours long. Like, it was a battle. And so you couldn't ask for a better final game, really, because they were going back and forth when she went down like 5-1, and you just see her not giving up. Like, that was to me more impactful than anything else. Just the going the back and the forth, preventing that match point being happening. It was so gut-wrenching to see that ball drop just outside of the square. But it was so thrilling to see, like, she wasn't giving up, and I saw her face the entire time. Like, when they panned to her face, it was almost just like she couldn't believe it either. Like, she was still going, and she kind of resigned herself to, I think this is it. Like, she took it in, and that was so special to see, like, in front of people like Russell Wilson and his wife were there, and, like, her daughter that was there. You couldn't have asked for a better final match.
It kind of encapsulates the type of athlete that she is, that she was always such a hard worker. She was always so resilient. She was always one that could battle through anything, and you see that in her final match. And, I was reading some quotes, leading up to the game about how she was conflicted about, feeling like she could win the U.S. Open, but also having to balance, like, hey, this is my last one. I kind of have to take in each match and just, like, cherish it. It's something, when I watched the Derek Jeter documentary, Jeter kind of laments that, like, yeah, I kind of wish I appreciated what was happening as I was living through it instead of on to the next one. I kind of like that Serena was open about, like, yeah, I'm thinking a little bit about, like, can I win this U.S. Open, but I'm also, trying to appreciate every match.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, it was 6 straight match points that finally forced the error. And you look at that, and then I looked at her speech after, like, to address the whole crowd, and it's one of those things that will just hold, like, such a strong memory, where she just thanks her parents. She's basically said, like, she's ready to explore a different side of Serena, which to me is so strong.
I like
because
when athletes say that.
I love it when she says that, because she was like, I'm ready to be a mom, I'm ready to be like me, because we're so used to seeing, and we've saw for so long, the tennis Serena. We don't get to see her be anything else than the tennis icon, but now she finally gets to be like, I'm like Serena Williams. I get to do what I want to do, and I get to be a role model for now my daughter and for so many people now.
It's so funny, like, we watch these athletes all the time that we feel like we're so close to them. We're so detached from who they really are. All we know is the athlete side. We know them through the sport that they play. We have absolutely no connection to their personal lives. And I think it's so awesome to see when they finally take a step away from the game that they're able to explore the other personality or just, the rest of their life, because it's a lot of the athletes, if you're going to be the best of the best, you have to take on like this kind of crazy mentality, and it's kind of nice to see them be able to relax and enjoy their life, because it's hard to enjoy life when you're a crazy competitive athlete.
Well, for Serena and Venus, they've been training so intense since they were little kids, because their dad, he was very intense trainer. But Maddie, I wanted to bring up very quick, I do think in addition to being a tennis icon, Serena in her tennis career was also a fashion icon.
Oh, she was,
because she always has the best tennis outfits, and I think it shows that she was able to show her personality and kind of be like a flashy athlete, which I think also led to her like being an icon. And I think that she always showed her personality kind of through her outfits. Like she would wear like a black full body suit, like all these crazy things, and I'm like, how can you play tennis in that? So again, just shows her athleticism.
Yeah, and especially with her hair in the Open this year, where I mentioned she used to do the beads, the white beads all throughout her hair, and she did diamonds this year in her hair, and I was like, that's such a cool thing to do, to show like she really has reached the top of like what she could be in tennis and what she means to everybody. And to see that, I think that's so like crazy that she finally has made it to that level. And I remember a couple of years ago, like when she was getting a lot of criticism for breaking her racket on the court, and it sparked the whole debate on whether or not like she was a like respectful athlete or she's over emotional. She's like what women were, and she handled it so amazingly. And I think because like she is still who she is today, and she didn't let it bother her, and she never let someone say, oh, well, women are too emotional to play, or they don't deserve to be doing that because, she smashed her racket. It's a big deal. Men did it all the time. Men would get so upset, and she never let something like that get to her and be like, oh, everybody hates me now. I need to step away. She continued to, continue playing tennis, and look where she is now. She's one of the most respected athletes, in my opinion, in the world in terms of what she has done.
It's funny in a sad way, right? Because like you said, if any man did that, we look at that and go, man, that's passion. That's grit. That's love for the game. We'd show that and replay over and over again and say, man, look how much he loves the game. And Serena does it. It spirals into this whole conversation that probably shouldn't have even existed in the first place. But I like what you talked about, which was kind of her transcending sports. Because a question I was asking myself is, like, where does she rank all time in terms of popularity, being recognized for athletes? Because I would say, right, as a baseball fan, as a hockey fan, maybe like 3% of the players from those leagues, like the average person would be able to recognize them on the street.
Yeah.
I would say, even as I don't consider myself a tennis fan, but like I know it's Serena Williams. Like I've always known what Serena Williams. Like I've always known that she's a great tennis player. I'd say that she's one of the most popular athletes ever.
Yeah. And I think it's especially when Billie Jean King comes to your matches, the person the stadium is literally named after at the U.S. Open, one of them at least, that she comes to your matches and she's ready to support you like that. Like that's huge. Like even before her, that's huge. And so I think you're completely right. Like Serena Williams is one of the athletes on the street. If I saw her, I knew immediately that's Serena Williams.
I think it almost sounds, it doesn't sound crazy to say because I think it's true. She's in like the Michael Jordan, LeBron James category of like one of the most popular athletes ever, to the point where she transcended sports. She's a celebrity. Like there are athletes that they're popular because they're athletes. She's a full-on celebrity.
She is. And I think that has to do with just how long she's been in the sport and how long she's been dominant in the sport. Because it's one thing to just continue your career and be average. She was above average by so many levels that, it's crazy to think that someone could even do that in the sport of tennis for so long and do it under the conditions that she did. And so she has to be up there in the top 5, just all-time male or female athletes.
Yeah,
for me,
it's not restricted by gender at all.
No, not restricted at all. And to see her, like, I can't even, like, most of the time, like, I'm not a big tennis head, but I couldn't name, like, maybe 5 tennis players, and 2 of them would be Serena and Venus. Like, if I came out and someone said, pick a couple, those are the 2 that immediately come to my mind.
I would say for our era, like, she's the most recognizable tennis player. Because, like, I know Nadal, I know Federer, I know what they look like, but I'm way more familiar with what Serena Williams looks like.
Mm-hmm. And to see her, like, you know, when she was at the Olympics and she's won the gold medal, and her whole mentality in like life was to do what Venus did. And I think that's so crazy. And I adore Venus as well. And I think Venus is also such a fashion icon when she shows up on the court. And I was watching their doubles match, and to watch, you know, Venus too, who is tenacious, like as the front player in the court. Like, she is incredible. And they work in such sync together that it's almost crazy to see two athletes do that, two sibling athletes do that. I think it makes it so great that Serena has had such a strong supporter in her corner, in a form of her older sister, to be there and be like, hey, I know you're doing amazing. Like, you know, even surpassed her in terms of what she accomplished. Like, I would say Serena has overpassed Venus, to still be there and be like, you're amazing. You are my number one supporter. That means so much to her, probably.
My favorite quote from her interview afterwards was, I believe she said, I wouldn't be Serena without Venus.
Yeah.
Venus, like, kind of paved the way for her, and then Serena came in. And another, like, crazy thing is to have two athletes at that caliber and work together and be siblings is absolutely crazy. And to have, like, as we've been saying, the name recognition of two siblings it's crazy. And, you know, I do think a lot of that credit goes to their father. I know there's a lot of controversy around him, but I think that training really did get them where they needed to be. But it's crazy that two siblings can play to that caliber and be that popular.
It is so cool. Like, they're up there with the Manning brothers in terms of popular siblings, but like the Manning brothers would never be able to play together because they're both quarterbacks. It's kind of so cool to see that Venus and Serena were able to play together. I think the only other, it's like, I think back to when Griffey Sr. and Griffey Jr. were playing for the Mariners together, and there are some hockey brothers that plays together. But I think because it's just you and that one other person, the fact that you got to see them together and in rhythm together, that's one of the coolest things that not sure that you're ever going to see something like that again in sports.
No, and I think the other huge thing about the Open was the crowd. The crowd was electric. I have never seen, like I said, I'm not a big tennis person, so I don't go to the matches, but when I assume tennis, I just assume it's kind of similar to golf in a way. Where it's like,
light clap.
It's a light clap, it's a polite clap, you're quiet for most of the game. The support she was getting, like, as she was, like, finishing that last set was incredible. Like, people on their feet, people cheering for her, screaming for her. And it got to the opponents. Like, the opponents would get flustered after such a large cheer for Serena, and you could just feel like she just said, like, so much love, so much support she was getting. She's so thankful, so grateful for her fans and for everything that she's done. And, you know, there's something like that very few athletes, I think, get. And she gets that at the major scale, no matter who she's playing. And I think that's what makes her her.
Yeah, definitely. I was at the Open this past Tuesday. I did not see Serena play or anyone really, like, super important. But I will say, in Arthur Ashe Stadium where she played, I was seeing two players who I didn't even know their names before the match. But it was a great environment. It was honestly one of the loudest environments I've been in when there was, like, a big point. So I can't imagine what that would be for Serena. It's a very great environment there. But, you know, I wish I got to see Serena, but Arthur Ashe Stadium, I think it's iconic, and to have something like Serena's retirement happen there is super awesome here in New York.
It's one of those environments that you don't see a lot because an athlete like Serena doesn't come around a lot. Again, I think it's kind of weird for me still kind of wrapping my mind about it. Like, ever since I've been alive, like, she's been the superstar in tennis that, like, from now on, she's just not playing tennis. It's a little weird. I'm happy that she's retired, but it is a little weird that my entire life, like, I just took her granted. Like, yeah, Serena Williams plays tennis. She's awesome. And now it's gone.
It's crazy. I honestly can imagine what ticket prices were for, like, the match last night. Like, what in the hundreds, thousands even it could have been. But, you know, it's one of those things that you, like, wish you could be there for. But, like, it felt like time stopped in that last match for her. 3 hours almost didn't feel like enough to watch her play her last game of tennis. And I think she knew. And, you know, like I said, it was something that, you know, I and many people will never forget. And so it's just going to be amazing to see now the new Serena, like she says, like, who she can be now outside of tennis.
Something I would like to see, I know there's already the King Richard movie, but I want to see like a good documentary like the Derek Jeter one.
30, good 30
yeah,
for 30.
Oh,
a
I
good
would love
30
that.
for 30, or like a good like biopic
Sure.
about Serena. I think that would be perfect, because another thing is like tennis is just made to be dramatic. Like, you can go back and you're going back and forth. There's very close calls. You can go back from advantage to deuce. You can go back and forth constantly. It's very grueling. So I think that's part of the dramatics, and I would love to see some long form media about her.
I guess, as we're starting to wrap towards the end of this segment, you both had mentioned that you're really excited to talk about this, and you're both worried you're gonna get a little verklempt, a little emotional. So I want to let you two have one final moment to just share a memory about her legacy, what it means to you, or just any final thoughts on Serena Williams as we wrap up this segment.
Yeah, I just think she's an inspiration of like women and athletes as a whole, and I think for someone like me who played a sport growing up, seeing a woman like her really dominate on the court and be like, oh my gosh, she can do it, I can do it. No matter what anybody says to you, no matter like what anybody does, she is the kind of player that you want to be as a kid.
I played tennis in high school, and I played when I was younger, and I had a Serena and Venus pink tennis racket, and I think it's what I took my first tennis lesson with, and I was like, I have the Serena and Venus tennis racket. I could be one of them. So like Maddie said, just kind of, she paved the way for so many women and motivated so many women.